Yo guys, welcome to the video. This is Josh or Milky, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the crafting. Now, this is a very complex topic, and obviously the league mechanic is not for everyone. I want to get that out of the way, and I'm going to say that I am maybe not the best qualified in terms of my ability to describe this, but I'm going to do my absolute best to describe why I crafted the items that I've crafted the way that I have, and the tools that I've used to do so. So we'll start off with some examples of things I've crafted. We have this wand that I made today. We're going to talk simply about the base. The item is crafted, but I wanted to get fractured double T1 fizz, and that's obviously what I've gotten. Then we have something like an amulet where I've gone for the same thing, and this is an example of a craft that I did the same way and I applied the same methods to get this outcome, right, with 2 fractured modifiers. So we'll talk about that one. And then we have something like this scepter where we've actually gone for every single mod. We've gone for 6 modifiers and we came out with this. So there are multiple different ways that you can approach a craft. We even have these gloves that I made where I have 3 fractured modifiers. Again, it's kind of, you have to do it on a case-by-case basis. And although my motivation with this video is absolutely to help you use the lead mechanic, I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly which method to use for exactly which item. That's just beyond the scope of this video and my expertise as a player. So I chose to do them this way purely based on feel. There are a million different ways you can craft items this league. I chose to do these for reasons which we'll get into. And we'll start, of course, with the amulet. So if we come to my sheet, which we have right here, and we come on over to my craft section, I am adding crafts to this as I go. And then we open up the Exsanguinate Mine Craft of Exile link. And you'll see this will shoot out a thing that I've done previously. And the whole idea of this craft was to reduce the weights of everything I could by as much as possible whilst raising the weight of things that I wanted. So you can see here we've got physical skill gems and we've got level of all skill gems. These are the 2 mods that I really wanted, and you can see I got the weighting of physical up to 10,200 and level of all skills to 2,550. And this is out of a total weight of 19,500. So the 2 mods that I want actually account for a very large portion of the total weight of the prefixes. That bit's important because you're not always going to get 3 prefixes. There is obviously that chance you get 1 and 4. So this does matter. We only have 3,377 weighting in the suffixes because we want to make sure that we have the highest chance to roll prefixes, because we wanted to make this a 4 mod item. And I'll talk about why now. So there is a method that you can use, which is to make a 4 mod item, so you don't add any explicit modifiers, and then you will fracture every single modifier. This can be done because every time you add 100% chance to fracture an item, it guarantees that a modifier will be fractured. If you get 50%, then the remaining 50% applies and you can get a 50% chance to fracture the next modifier. So that's pretty clear, right? If we have 400, we fracture 4 mods. If we have 350, we fracture 3, and we have a 50% chance to fracture the 4th. Then what I wanted to do was to split the item. This is another option you can have within the graveyard. You can split an item, and this always happens at the end. So what will happen is your graveyard will run all these. It will shoot out an item with 4 modifiers, much like this. Then it will fracture them all, and then it will split it. Now, another key point that we've noticed is if you choose to Divine Orb, use the Divine Orb craft on this, it won't Divine Orb the item pre-fracture, so it's useless to do so. And that's why my wand isn't a perfect Divine, despite me using those. So hopefully this all makes sense so far. So we've got an item, we've used our combination of modifiers to get it to be 4 mods and to be the most likely to be the mods that we want, which is a 76% chance, and then we will split it. Now, when we split it, we have a 1 in 3 chance to get the split we want, as 1 mod will always be on one of the items, right? And then the other 3 mods, it's a 1 in 3. So this, you can basically times this by a third, and we have about a 25% success rate with this craft to get the double fractured amulet base that we can see here. Hopefully that will make sense. Now, how do you go about putting your graveyard together is a pretty big question. One tool that I've been using is called Pseudos PoE Tools. You can see it right here. This is obviously going to look a bit colorful. It's going to look like a clown threw up, but you can use this to plot out your graveyard, and you can also share these with other players. You can click this import button and you could import a string from someone else. I will add my import strings to the sheet as I make them. I don't think I'm going to go back and do it retroactively unless there's an absolutely huge demand for it, just because it does take a large amount of time, but I am willing to do it if there's a big demand. just because I want to help you guys make items. And this obviously does take a large amount of time. Now, which setup do you want to use? Because you've got these mods here. It says 58 out of 88 graves used. We've got 30 left over. And what those 30 are going to be used for are those other options that we spoke about. Because nothing here is got anything to do with fracture chance, split chance, or the opportunity to make your grave craft an additional time. And all these three things are very important, because if we only have a 25% success rate, do we really want to go to the trouble of gathering 88 corpses every single time and running it 4 times to hit it on average? Absolutely not. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the additional craft modifiers that we can see. It's the one right here. And if you use this exact setup that I have set in right now with the meta crafting options, then you will get the 301% chance to craft additional items. So this particular setup, I'm not saying use this setup by the way, but just as an example, you get to 300% additional, which means you craft 1 and then 3 more because you have that 300% additional. So that's one example of the meta crafting. And then of course we want to squeeze in our chance to fracture an explicit modifier, which we can do by slotting in. This is a fairly complex example, I will say, because I'm using a lot of the adjacent tiles. There are much simpler variants like the one that I have on my sheet. This one right here is much simpler. You only use 3 adjacents and the 4th one right here, but that one is much more manageable. It is quite annoying to trade for the specific ones, but you can do it, and obviously you only have to do it a couple of times, hopefully, if you hit. But then if you really don't want to do that, you can also just settle on using the columns and the rows in the places shown on this sheet, and you're going to get decent bang for your buck with how much each of your corps gives you. So then you'd come through, and what you're basically trying to do is plot in your points to reach the values shown on Craft of Exile. It's tedious, I know. I can't really give you an example of how I did to do it, but we can do one thing here. 5,000 increased chance of gem modifiers. That is 10 times 500, or we can do 8 times 500, which is 4,000 times 1.25. And I know that these yellow squares are worth 1.25. So I can fill these up with 8 gems, and that will give me 5,000. So you can do that, and this will fill it in for you as well. But if you want to kind of eyeball it as you go, that's how I do it. But this will fill in for you as you go. And that's about it. It also gives you a shopping list, which is going to tell you everything you need to buy once you have this string. So you can go ahead and get everything prepared. Now, there are a few things lacking from Craft of Exile. Haunted modifiers are a great example. And if you're not too comfortable with this, then I would say if you want to go for exact haunted modifiers, it's going to be a bit more difficult, because there are all these hidden weightings that you can't see in Craft of Exile. All these haunted modifiers do have tags, and they are affected by your graves. So if you want to craft a frenzy charge, not only are you going to have to block everything else on gloves, but you're going to have to block all these additional tags here if you haven't already done so. So bear that in mind if you're going to craft haunted tags. Now, another cool aspect of this tool is you are able to, as I said, export the string. And if you were to copy it and come to PoE Graveyard, you can actually put it in here, click submit, and it'll tell you exactly how many divine orbs worth of corpses it's going to cost you. So for my craft here, which is for a pair of gloves, it would be 12.57 divines. And I've actually, for the purposes of this video, got one ready to share with you. So if we visit the Necropolis, I have this ready to go. I've plotted everything down. Took me an awfully long time, as it does. I'm not trying to defend this mechanic. It takes an awfully long time. It's incredibly tedious. But there you can see, if we press tab, we can see all the graves are ready to go. So I'm going to click craft. We have everything as we want it from my recipe. Armor, gloves, evasion, and I want slink gloves. So pray for me. Here we go. He's going to waffle away, and hopefully we get the exact gloves we want. We're going for 3 fracture. I want spell suppression. I want max frenzy charge, and I want crit multi. Hopefully. It's difficult to hit it, but let's see what we got. We got Dex, hybrid evasion, frenzy, rarity, global blind, unnerve, frenzy, blind, and unnerve. Okay. Crit multi, evasion, and bleed, and suppress, multi, and melee attacks knockback. So not exactly what I was hoping for, and an awful lot of time went into this, but that is the nature of the beast. I hope you enjoyed this video and it helps you in some way with your crafting. Use those tools, and I will be sharing more as I go. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.